science, a little bit of an overhaul, but some of our main issues include, I don't have it listed here. Some of our main issues include fuels treatment's effectiveness, smoke and air quality, fire adapted communities and fire response, fire ecology, landscape restoration, and those types of topics are our main topics. We also have an active YouTube channel where we're offering more abbreviated versions of science presentations and PowerPoints called Fire Science Hotspots, where you can look at summaries of regional science, relevant science. We try to get it down into 5 minutes or less as an introductory tool, and then you can look on other things as well. If you have projects, fire science exchange, you need logistics, information, networking, or expert cadres, please don't hesitate to contact us. And I believe, I'm assuming most of the people online are familiar with the Joint Fire Science Program. Let me know if you'd like me to explain that a little further. And if you have questions for me, I'm watching chat. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks, Gloria. And so Gloria is representing the Southern Rockies Fire Science Network, and I'm here in my role representing the Southwest Fire Science Consortium. And obviously we may have folks from all sorts of consortia across the country. And let's see, I'm not sure if I can make this work in this format. You know, maybe we'll skip the polling today, but obviously we're glad to have folks from any consortium or exchange. There's sort of a mix of names out there for the same activity of trying to share fire science knowledge across organizations. And we often still get this question even after a number of years of running the Southwest Fire Science Consortium about why have this activity, why have these exchanges? And the case I always make is that fire cuts across these boundaries, agency, administrative, state boundaries, and so our knowledge and our activities need to cut across those same boundaries. And some of those boundaries are ones we construct for ourselves just around the kinds of jobs we do, whether we consider ourselves managers, concerned with a particular piece of ground, or whether we consider ourselves scientists and researchers, or even policymakers of the public. Those barriers, too, need work to get around and share knowledge across in order to make sure that the right scientists are asking the right questions that managers need answers for, and managers are putting the answers to get the newest science right on the ground. And I think actually that ties in nicely with today's presentation, which we'll get to in a minute. So some of the activities, both sets of fire science exchanges do, things like workshops, webinars, and on the Southwest side, we have a system where we can provide some financial support, some logistical support for events and field trips. So if there's an activity or a field trip that you would like to see happen in Arizona, New Mexico, and West Texas, please do get in touch, and you can check out our website. There's a little form for proposing an activity, and you can get in touch that way. There are a couple of things coming up. I know for the Southern Rockies Fire Science Network, they have a great fuels treatment and ecological values in Pinon Juniper Woodlands tour coming up in Colorado. So if you're somewhat close to the Arkansas River Valley, you should head up to that tour on the 8th of June. The Southwest has a big conference coming up in Tucson, November and December of this year, and that'll be focused on trying to get beyond just this hazardous fuels mentality and really thinking about how we manage fire for social, economic, and ecological benefits. So moving beyond just, oh, we got to thin the forest or move quote-unquote fuels, and really think about how we interact with fire, whether that's as a fire-adapted community or as managing fire across a large landscape. Some of the webinars that we have coming up, actually, I guess it's next week, I will be working with Brent Watcher from the National Weather Service to both look at last year's fire season in the Southwest, as well as Brent will be talking about the outlook for the fire season in Arizona and New Mexico for 2016, although obviously it's already started in some places. And then in June, we're hoping to get Megan Poling to talk about her analysis of burn severity trends in the Southwest. Please excuse the typo. And later on, we'll have Amy Waltz from NAU's Ecological Restoration Institute talk about broad-scale monitoring. And if you have other ideas for webinars, please do get in touch with me, Xander Evans. My home organization is the Forest Stewards Guild, forestguild.org. And I think with that, let's see if I can switch around here. We will move into, we've got a couple more folks on the line, but we'll dive right into our presentations. We're actually very lucky to have two presenters today, both who work on the Fire Effects Information System. Ilana Abramson leads the Fire Effects Information System team of the Fire Modeling Institute within the Rocky Mountain Research Station of the U.S. Forest Service. Prior to leading the team, Ilana was a writer and ecologist with the University of Montana's Fire Center, and she also writes and edits hands-on activities for the fireworks curriculum. So for students and teachers thinking about fire science and the science of wildland fire. Ilana has a bachelor's degree in environmental studies from the State University of New York at Binghamton and a master's of forestry from the University of Montana. Our other co-presenter today is Robin Ennis, who is an ecologist with the Fire Modeling Institute, again, of the Rocky Mountain Research Station. She's actually based in New Hampshire. Coincidentally, she sits right around the corner from my sister, who also works in New Hampshire. She writes and edits syntheses of science information for the Fire Effects Information System, and her bachelor's degree in wildlife management is from the University of New Hampshire. She also has a master's degree in ecology from University of California, Davis. Prior to working for the FEIS, Robin managed several ecological research projects, including large-scale collaborative projects that evaluated the effects of land management practices on animals and their habitats. So I think it's always good to have somebody who has been out there thinking about on-the-ground management involved more on the modeling or information sharing side. So it keeps the link together. And with that, I think I may go ahead and mute the line, even though we don't have too many people on, just to make sure we have a nice clear channel. But otherwise, we can turn it right over, and I will give Ilana the floor. And Ilana, the floor is yours, so you can dive into the meat of today's presentation.
Perfect. Thanks, Xander. Hi, everyone. Thanks for attending the webinar today. This is great for us. This presentation is about finding fire ecology and fire regime information online in the Fire Effects Information System, or FEIS. In this presentation, we'll showcase some of our newest products and fire regimes and demonstrate our new search capabilities. We'll focus this webinar on ecosystems in the Southwest and Southern Rocky Mountains. So have you ever asked yourself questions such as these? How might the use of prescribed fire affect the species I'm interested in? How can I find information on historical fire regimes in my area? How have fuels changed in the past 100 years or more? How does wildland fire affect non-native invasive plants? Or how might climate change affect fire regimes in the future? Well, the Fire Effects Information System was designed to help answer questions such as these. For those of you unfamiliar with FEIS, FEIS is an online collection of peer-reviewed syntheses on fire ecology and fire regimes. There are over 1,200 syntheses in the collection, which cover both native and non-native plants, lichens, and animals in the United States. FEIS is designed to meet the needs of land and resource managers seeking the best available science for use in fire management, fuels management, general land management planning, and NEPA documents. Our website is located at the bottom of this slide, and this is a new web address as of January. So to write a synthesis for FEIS, a team of ecologists conducts a thorough literature searches and critical analyses of the available information. We describe patterns or lack of patterns and explain what is known and not known, and we describe the implications for management. All of the information in FEIS syntheses is thoroughly documented using in-text citations. Here are some text modified from an FEIS synthesis on white mulberry, a widely distributed non-native invasive shrub. It says, the ability of white mulberry to sprout from stump or roots suggests that top-killed white mulberry plants may regenerate vegetatively following fire. Then there are a bunch of citations. This assertion is documented, but watch what happens with the changes. Now we can see exactly who said what, and the reader can go right to the source for information on stumps at citation 150 or roots, citation 21 and 136. The FEIS team uses in-text citation to direct readers to the sources of information. Now we can look at the last sentence. However, this response has only been documented once, and fire details and the type of sprouting were not specified. So this sentence is doing this. It's putting a hedge around the knowledge to make sure that when you apply it, you're not tempted to stray outside the scope of inference from what Study 61 reported. So the FEIS team uses hedges to help provide a scope of inference for our readers. So why bother going to FEIS for syntheses when you can just Google it? Well, a Google Scholar search or any citation database search like JSTOR or Web of Science gives you a grocery list of publications. For instance, the Google Scholar search for lodgepole pine and fire yields a list that's over 20,000 citations long. With this synthesis, an ecologist has done the search for you. We've filtered out what is relevant and described the patterns. And this grocery list is getting longer each year. Fire research is growing quickly. This graph shows that publications on fire have quadrupled since the 1960s. So there's more information available and not enough staff or financial resources to deal with it. So the purpose of FEIS is to help managers be more efficient at finding and using information on fire. FEIS has 4 types of publications. Species reviews are a staple, and we've been publishing them in FEIS since 1985. They synthesize information on plant, lichen, and animal species fire ecology and include information on species distribution, their basic biology and ecology, as well as information on fire effects and management. Here's an example of a species review. This one includes information on 4 tamarisk species. FEIS has 2 new types of publications on fire regimes, fire regime syntheses and fire regime reports. Between the 2 of them, there is information on fire regimes for every plant community in the United States. Here's an example of a fire regime synthesis. This one is on montane riparian communities in California and southwestern Oregon. Fire regime syntheses provide an in-depth analysis of published literature on historical fire regimes in individual plant communities, and they address contemporary changes in fuels and fire regime characteristics for those communities. Each fire regime synthesis includes a section covering the distribution and plant communities discussed, a section covering historical fire regime characteristics, which provides specific details on fire ignition, season, frequency, type, severity, intensity, pattern, and size. It includes a section on contemporary changes in fuels and fire regimes, which might discuss the effects of changes in hydrology and fuels, climate change, and non-native invasive species. We also have a limitation of section, which analyzes knowledge gaps and areas of uncertainty and identifies regions and plant community types lacking fire history data. In addition to the synthesis of the scientific literature, fire regime syntheses provide information about land fire's biophysical settings. In fact, fire regimes in FEIS are comprised of biophysical settings, or BPSs. Biophysical settings represent vegetation that is thought to have been dominant on the landscape prior to European settlement. So to view the list of individual BPS models covered in a fire regime synthesis, you can click on the link to the Appendix A, which is highlighted in gray on this slide. This is that appendix, and to access the land fire data in the appendix, you can click on the URL and it will open a PDF. The PDF provides information on BPS's geographical range, site characteristics, vegetation, and natural disturbances, including fire. Okay, so fire regime reports are our other fire regime products. These provide brief summaries of land fire information on fire frequency and severity for the group of biophysical settings covered by the fire regime, but they do not include an in-depth analysis of the published literature. Here's an example of a fire regime report on southern Rocky Mountain quaking aspen communities. Right now, most of the fire regimes in FEIS are described by a fire regime report rather than a synthesis. Each fire regime report includes a summary table of land fire's biophysical settings modeling of fire return intervals and severities. They include a distribution map of the plant communities included in the report and a link to that Appendix A that I showed you earlier. So as an aside, one of the reasons we chose to use biophysical settings in FEIS is that the spatial layers and metadata associated with BPSs are being reviewed and updated. Our fire regime syntheses are providing some of the information that will be used to update the biophysical setting models. Once the updates are completed, we'll incorporate these changes back into FEIS. This provides a positive feedback loop and will make the information in FEIS some of the most up-to-date information on fire regimes available. For those of you interested in knowing more about the biophysical settings and land fire's effort to review and update the biophysical setting models, you can go to www.landfirereview.org. The last of FEIS's publication types are fire studies. These are summaries of one or more related research studies that occur in the same location. They provide detailed results on vegetation, fire characteristics, and fire effects for particular studies. This fire study summarized the research of 8 studies by Jane and Carl Bach that occurred at the same location in Santa Cruz County, Arizona. Fire studies were developed to supplement FEIS's other publications. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Robin so she can show you a live demonstration of our products and user interface.
Thanks.
Okay. Robin, I'm giving you the floor, so you should, great. Oh, good.
Wonderful. Thank you, everyone. So I wanted to demonstrate some of the capabilities of our new website. All FEIS publications can be accessed using this user interface, which was just released in September. So there's a lot of new features I'm going to showcase today. You can do a basic search for a particular species right on the home page by entering a species scientific or common name in one of these boxes and clicking on Enter Species. This is a great option if you know what you're looking for. You can also browse all of a certain kind of publication type by selecting Find All. There are over 1,000 species reviews, 150 fire studies, and 180 fire regimes in FEIS. You can also narrow your search for a particular publication type by using the advanced search options. These are great options if you're looking for information in a particular location or plant community type. So let's say you wanted information on how prescribed fire might affect mule deer. You can find what you're looking for by entering the mule deer's common or scientific name in the search box and clicking on interspecies. You could select more than one species by separating the search terms with a comma. If you are copying and pasting into these boxes, take care not to paste any extra spaces or you might not get the results you expect. So clicking on interspecies, I see that FEIS has a review of the mule deer that was published in 2013. The acronym has a link to the publication. Some species reviews include information on fire regimes within the synthesis, while others, particularly the older ones, do not. But with the addition of our newest publications on fire regimes, all species reviews now have the fire regime information available directly from the results page. And you can access that information by clicking on the available link under fire regimes here. Let's take a quick look at the mule deer species review. You can quickly navigate our reviews using the blue hyperlinks. You can cite all of our reviews by using the citation located at the beginning of each review. Let's click on the distribution and occurrence section. We see that this review includes a map. Now, each synthesis is a little different depending on the information available in the published literature. But all species reviews include details regarding the species' current and historical distribution and occurrence within plant communities. I'm going to go back and click on the biological data and habitats requirements section. You'll see that animal reviews include information on the species' life history, diet, preferred habitat, and other topics, while species reviews of plants include information on the species' seasonal development, regeneration processes, and successional status. Of course, the meat of the species reviews are the fire effects and management sections. For species reviews on animals, this section includes direct and indirect fire effects. For species on reviews on plants, this includes information on post-fire regeneration strategies, fire adaptations, and plant responses to fire. Some species reviews include information on fire regimes, and all species reviews include information for fire management considerations. For the fire management considerations section of mule deer, we can see that this section includes considerations regarding timing, type, and size. So just a side note here before I move on is that in the next week or so we will have an updated species review on greater and Gunnison sage grouse, and I am currently updating the mountain big sagebrush species review, so look for that in the future. Okay, so let's say you're interested in how fire affects non-native forbs in your national park. So in this case, we're going to take a look at the advanced search option for species reviews. And we're going to look at some of the different criteria we can choose from. I'm going to choose forb among the different life forms, a non-native forbs. And then you can, we have a drop-down menu for agency that includes all of the federal land management agencies. So in this case, I'm going to select National Park Service, Intermountain Region, and this will list all of the unit names, and I can actually use my keyboard to, whoops, I was going to, but I think I pushed the wrong key. Hold on a second. I think I pushed something I shouldn't have, but we'll just go back and try again. There we are. Okay. And I wanted to click on Grand Canyon National Park as an example. So we can see that there are 25 species reviews available that cover non-native forbs in the Grand Canyon. So then you can peruse this list and see what might be relevant to you. So what if you're interested in information on historical fire regimes in your area? So let's first go to the home page and select the Find All option to take a look at our fire regimes. It does appear to be thinking. Okay, there we are. And we see that FEIS has 185 fire regimes. So fire regime syntheses were first published in FEIS in 2013. So anything with the date of 2012 is a fire regime report. So far the FEIS team has published syntheses for Alaska, California, and Hawaii. So we are currently writing syntheses on ponderosa pine fire regime. So look for those to be published in the near future. And we eventually hope to publish syntheses of all the fire regimes. So the fire regime syntheses or reports can be accessed by clicking on the links under the fire regime title here. With a glance, you can also see the historical minimum and maximum mean fire return intervals. The information displayed in these two columns is that provided by land fire modeling unless a synthesis was published for that fire regime. So in that case, it was selected by FEIS staff from information found in published literature. The biophysical settings and data column provides links to the appendix with the land fire information Ilana spoke of earlier. There are also links to the fire studies and species reviews that are associated with those fire regime titles. Like all results pages, you can export these results into an Excel table for you to access at any time. And that Excel table includes these hyperlinks, so you can go directly from it to the results. The results are in alphabetical order by region. And as you can see, as we scroll down, many occur in more than one region. Let's take a quick look at the synthesis on fire regimes of Alaskan white spruce communities. In addition to the features Ilana mentioned earlier, fire regime syntheses include a summary of the synthesis. So the summary is a kind of synthesis of the synthesis. So reading the summary is a good way to get a quick overview of the information available. The distribution and plant community section of each fire regime synthesis includes a map of the land fire BPSs. You can click on our maps to make them bigger so you can zoom in and read the legend. You can also go to the land fire website and download this data layer if you find it useful. But the meat of the fire regime syntheses is the historical fire regime section. As we scroll through this document, you can see that we provide images and tables whenever possible so that patterns can be more easily discerned. Going back to the table of contents, we'll take a look at the contemporary changes in fire regime section. And in this review, we have information on fire exclusion, changes in ignition rates, changes in fire frequency, and climate change. And in other syntheses, you might find information on non-native species, but in this case, non-native species were not a big concern. So let's go back to the home page and click on the advanced search option for fire regimes, because we know that you are not in Alaska now and you're interested in something in your region. So we're going to take a look here at the advanced search. We have lots of criteria we can choose from. In this case, we're going to look at the map location option for searching. We have 3 maps available. I'm going to click on the conterminous US map. And you can pan and zoom to find the location you're interested in. In this case, I'm going to click near Bluff, Utah, and click Go. Great, and we can see we have 23 fire regimes associated with plant communities that are within a 50-mile radius of that location. So here's an opportunity to look at fire regime reports in a little more detail. So let's, in this case, we'll click on the blackbrush shrublands to take a look at this fire regime report. And we can quickly see that the fire interval of BPSs in this report range from 200 to 833 years, and all have a replacement fire severity. And we can quickly see that the blackbrush plant communities covered in this report are largely in California, the Southern Great Basin, and the Southwest. And we're going to take a quick look at this appendix showing the individual BPSs covered in this fire regime report. This report includes the Mojave Mid-Elevation Mixed Desert Scrub BPSs and the Colorado Plateau Blackbrush Mormon Tea Shrublands. And we're going to access one of these and just show you quickly what some of the contents are that you might get. So in this case, we can see information about cover and height of the vegetation. We find information on associated species. We're going to scroll down to the disturbance section, and we can see that there's generally low amounts of fuel limiting fire spread in this BPS, and that this BPS, the vegetation in this BPS is considered some of the most flammable in the region. So this state and transition model happens to have two successional classes. The first one includes early development, and we see that fire is relatively uncommon in early development. And it has a second class. In late succession, we see that fire occurred approximately every 200 years. There can be up to 5 vegetation succession classes included. This one only has 2. And finally, at the end, we find the disturbances section, which includes all of the modeled fire regime information. So even without a synthesis, you can find a lot about a plant community's fire regime using FEIS's fire regime reports. Well, what if a species you're interested in does not have a species review or a fire regime associated with it? Going back to the home page, we're going to look at fire studies. So these are a great option if a synthesis isn't available and you're looking for fire effects information. We're going to take a look at the advanced search options for fire studies. And in this case, prickly lettuce is a good example. It's a widely distributed non-native forb. It's very common in every state in the United States. So if you did a search for prickly lettuce and click go, you would see that FEIS has 7 fire studies that have fire effects information on this species. The studies took place in Idaho, Michigan, Montana, and Oregon. And the fire study can be accessed using the author link. So let's click on the Armor and Others, this first one here, to access this fire study. The fire study summarizes 2 studies by these authors that occurred in the same location in Idaho. One is published here, and this other one is not. So FEIS can be a good resource for potentially hard-to-find information. We are going to use the find function to find prickly lettuce in the text. So just quickly, we can see that prickly lettuce is considered a fire-adapted species and that it was most common on high-intensity burn sites. So that concludes my demonstration, and I'm going to go back to you, Ilana.
Let me just give Ilana the floor here. Okay, Ilana, it's all yours.
Perfect. Thanks a lot. All right. So if after examining the publication that FEIS offers and you still don't find the information you need, we have one more resource for you. On the home page, there's a link to the citation database. Click Go, and you will be taken to the Citation Retrieval System, or CRS. CRS is one of the reference databases that FEIS writers use to find documents to review. It contains more than 60,000 citations. CRS is continually being updated with the most recent publications on fire. So CRS is a great place to go if you're looking to supplement syntheses in FAIS with the most up-to-date literature on fire. It also contains rare and historical documents. All of the documents in CRS are housed in the Fire Effects Library at the Missoula Fire Sciences Lab in Missoula, Montana. If you'd like to use CRS, we recommend contacting FAIS staff to help with your literature searches. So as a recap, we can see that species reviews and fire studies are great resources to find information on individual species. And we can see that fire regime syntheses and fire regime reports contain information about historical fire regimes and contemporary changes in fuels and fire regimes. Finally, the FAIS database is relatively new, and we're still improving its contents. Occasionally, you might get some odd results from your searches, but we're working on our database regularly, so this will happen less frequently. We're always looking for feedback on how FAIS is being used and on ways of improving FAIS. So please use the Contact Us link on our homepage to provide feedback. You could also sign up for FAIS News to get the latest information about FAIS. And with that, that concludes our webinar today. And if you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer them. Thanks a lot.
Great. Well, thank you so much. It's great to have both the overview and the real-time tour through the web interface. So I appreciate that. And let's see, I think our first content question here comes from Tim Kirkpatrick, and he asks if the Fire Effects Information System covers Canada and the U.S., and if there are any plans on adding Mexico.
This is Robin. Yes, we will always focus on the United States, but we do have some information. If you wanted to search for what species reviews, for example, cover species occurring in Mexico, you could go to our advanced search page, and in the drop-down menu under state and province, you can select Mexico and see what results come up there. But we will always focus on the United States.
Great, thank you. And while we're waiting for other folks to type questions in the chat window, I had a question about the update schedule. So obviously there are a lot of pieces in here, a lot of records, and I was wondering if there's a good way to describe what the goal is, what your sort of estimate is for when things get updated, how frequently.
Yeah, that's a great question, Xander. This is Ilana. As you may have noticed, a lot of our species reviews are older, and ideally we'd love to update more things more regularly. But what happens is we generally choose what to update based on a couple criteria. The first one being funding. Another one is we're doing a push towards fire regime syntheses because we, have only published a few in, the specific regions that Robin mentioned. And the other important thing we look at are what do managers need now. So we want to select species to update based on what managers need. And that's part of the reason that we are updating the sage grouse review that Robin's working right now and mountain big sagebrush. In fact, folks from the Northern Rocky Mountain Consortium are the ones that suggested that. So we're open to suggestions. There are about 5 or 6 writers right now, so we do what we can, and the length of time it takes us to update a review depends on how much literature is available on what we're reviewing.
And I have one more quick question on that, and then we'll get to Jason's question about explaining the accessing the citation retrieval system. Joint Fire Science Program has funded a number of reviews I noticed the other day that one on Extreme Fire Behavior Volume 2 had just come out. But they have a whole catalog now of relatively recent reviews that are either focused on a forest type like ponderosa pine or some other attribute like water or extreme fire behavior. Do you guys integrate those into the fire effects information system as well?
Yes, if we had something available like that, whether it's published in a peer-reviewed journal or a GTR or government publication, if we can access that information, then we would include it within a review, as long as it was covering the information relevant to our synthesis.
Great, thanks. And what's the do we want to go to sharing again to answer Jason's question, or is there a better way to explain how to access the citation retrieval system again?
Robin, could you show CRS since I haven't shared my screen yet?
Let me just give Robin control here. There we go. Great. And Robin, you may be on mute.
I am on mute. Thank you. Yes, so here's our site. Here is the web page that Ilana was telling us about earlier. Here's that contact us. You can always do that. If you want to play around in it, you can click on Search CRS, and you can search by author, year, title, and specific keywords. And we often use the keyword searches. For example, you could type in fire and mule deer and select go and see what you get, that sort of thing. In this case, I'll just do deer. I believe there's probably, a lot on just fire and mule deer, or fire and deer specifically. And then you can take a look at that. If you have any questions about what you're seeing or want some more complicated searches, just feel free to email us. We're more than happy to answer any questions.
And how is this at all related to the frames database? Because one could run a similar search at frames, right?
It's a little different, and we speak with them on a semi-regular basis about this and the thought of integrating them. Our system, we have a pretty in-depth keywording system. So when we get new information from journals, we go through and we have so many keywords that we use, many more than what frames use. So this is a place where, say you wanted information on something that we haven't reviewed or something kind of obscure, that you don't find a lot of published information on. Well, we would have gone through each of the publications and keyworded for every single species not mentioned in a particular journal, but that was measured, so if meaning was fire effects or something about succession or post-fire, was the cover of some species mentioned? And if so, that would have been a keyword within CRS. So it's a great place, if you're doing a Google search on, something obscure, might not get much, but you might find it within CRS.
And one thing to note if you're searching for a plant is that we use acronyms much like the plants database uses acronyms, but ours are unique to FEIS. And so if you're searching for, if you wanted something on fire and a specific plant, you might want to ask somebody what our acronym is.
And I believe, Robin, if you still have control, if you click on that home page again for CRS, then let's see. I was seeing if we still have a tutorial on here, but I don't see one. Maybe, we used to have a tutorial about this. I'm not sure where that went. Sorry about that.
Okay, I'm sure we can access it and send it to anybody who's interested. There's also a keyword search at the bottom here, so you could enter a plant name and come up with, it'll tell you what the keyword would be that you could then put into the search term box here.
Great, thank you.
Thanks for asking.
And let's see if there are other questions here in the chat window. And if anybody, maybe we could go ahead. There are only about 15 people on the line, so let's go ahead and unmute the line here so that if you have a question, you can feel free to let us know over the phone line. And I see Gloria's mentioning a Gamble Oak paper that's coming out that we can, I'm sure, will get integrated right away. Other people have questions or comments for our presenters?
Yeah, this is Gloria from Southern Rockies. I just wanted to let folks know that that's one of the major issues that we've identified as a knowledge gap in the Southern Rockies Fire Science Exchange region, that Gamble Oak is ubiquitous and widespread throughout Arizona, New Mexico, and the Southwest, all the way up into most Utah counties, as well as Colorado's western slope and all the way to Colorado Springs. And most folks, I'm assuming, know that there's no shortage of fire science and ecology on ponderosa pine or dry mixed conifer or lodgepole, but there's a real paucity of science in the Southern Rockies region on Gamble Oak. And we are just now in the final stages of a status of our knowledge review about what we know about Gamble Oak in this region. And what it is to help identify the current knowledge gaps and the current research and management needs for Gamble Oak to assess it in fire ecology and within the wild and urban interface, and for fire ecology for managers. So it's kind of a current statement and reference that's meant to augment what's currently on FEIS. And that should be coming out hopefully next month, both online and in hard copy. And we're looking forward to getting feedback, and we're hoping that it lays the foundation for funds for future research. So I just want to let you all know that to watch out for that, and that should be coming out soon.
Great, thank you. I personally am interested, and I think many of the participants in the Southwest Fire Science Consortium would be very interested in that. So definitely send it our way, and we'll make sure it gets out on our email list as well.
You bet. Okay.
But maybe with that, I don't see any other questions in the chat window, so maybe I'll take the opportunity to thank Ilana and Robin again for a great presentation. And we will make this recording available and include it on frames, and it'll be sent out in an email to everyone who registered. You feel free to share it with your colleagues or anybody else. And any last questions before I turn off the webinar?
Thank you very much for doing this. This is really helpful for me to have a review. I really appreciate both Robin and you and Ilana. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks to everybody, and I look forward to joining everybody on future webinars.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thanks.